Good morning, Daylighters. I want to tell you about one of the hardest parts about being a pastor, and specifically preaching 30 or 32 times a year, is imposter syndrome combined with like the expectation of expertise. So you can look at the room right now and all the chairs are facing me. Every face is on me. I got to have something to offer. And some weeks you have 1 week to prepare and become an expert on whatever topic, and you want to keep it relevant, you want to keep it meaningful, you want to be spirit-led, and sometimes it's really, really hard to do that. This is not one of those weeks. I am an absolute expert on this topic. I feel good about it. I've invested my life in it. No one emulates this characteristic I'm about to talk about more than me. Humility. I got it pouring out my pores. And today I intend to bequeath some of my knowledge upon you, and I'm really excited because how often does a man get to bequeath anything? It's pretty nice, that bequeathment that's going to go on today. Pretty happy about it. The laughter and the irony is that humility is pretty evasive. It's slippery. And once you think you've got it, you don't have it. It's almost like if you've ever looked into the night sky and you've seen a star out of your peripheral vision, but then you turn to look at the star and it's gone. Humility is kind of like that. It's this thing that when you try to grasp it and you turn towards it, it evades you. And I've been thinking about it a lot recently for some reason. And it turns out the topic of humility is extremely complicated. I've spent many hours brainstorming what to talk about, and right now I have like this puddle of mud, kind of let's just talk about it and see what happens thing going on. So we're calling this 3 weeks of rambling on humility. I'm probably going to talk about humility for the next 3 weeks. I don't promise that, but I've got a lot of information that I want to share. There's an old story about some fish. There's the big, old, wizened fish swimming past two younger, smaller fish. He says, "Hey guys, how's the water treating you today?" And the fish just say, "Fine." And as they float away, one of the younger fish turns to the other fish and says, "What the heck is water?" It's this idea that you can be so immersed in something, so caught up in something that you're just not even aware that it is a thing. And we get acclimated to this comparison mentality and attention getting, and likes on social media is just second nature to us at this point. We hunger for approval and appreciation, and the word exceptional comes to mind a lot. We want to be exceptional. We want to be known as exceptional, that there's something special about us. And we swim in those waters constantly so much that it just becomes second nature. It's complicated partially because it's so elusive. And I'm going to use this sermon as an example, which might be me trying to get your attention and ego-driven. But I have some good reasons I want to talk about humility, and I think they're pure reasons. I think they're helpful reasons, and it's this list. I want to make a difference, and I think humility makes a difference. Humility is a healthy trait to have. Pride leads to ruin. Jesus taught humility and exemplified humility, and if we want to be conformed to the image of Christ, then humility is something we should study and process and think about. And then finally, there's going to be many other reasons that just come up in this puddle of mud rambling in the next few weeks. So there's these upright and good reasons to talk about humility, but then those are coupled with what are probably some sour or ugly reasons to do this. And one is, I just want you all to like my sermon. I'm swimming in it. I get home after preaching, and if my wife doesn't immediately say, "You did a good job today," it just sucks the life right out of me. I want to be known as one who does a good job. And there's something ego-driven about that. I want you to see me as intelligent, articulate, funny, and mostly valuable. And that word valuable comes out important when you talk about humility. It's where you get your value from. And it isn't necessarily that you think me intelligent, articulate, or funny. The value comes from somewhere else. I hope I'm going to come across as competent, wise, and important. We all swim in these waters. We all want to feel important. We all want to feel appreciated. And this is where it gets really complicated. In some sense, there's nothing wrong with that. It's communal. It's relational. It's what keeps us interacting. It's a driving force behind some really good stuff. But I think we all can we're all aware also that there's some sourness in the mentality, in the self-centeredness, the look at me, ego-driven stuff. And there's a balance there. I desire to be admired and thought well of. And even this list is complicated because it could be virtue signaling. I could be putting this list up there so that you guys will think I'm deep. And man, is he transparent. And now I'm valuable because I'm transparent. It gets pretty wild when you really think about it and process it. Some of us come by this naturally, but there's a haircut called the monk. I'm ashamed to say that if I grow my hair out, I've got the monk. It's just a reality. I don't have to do it out of any special piety or righteousness. It's just my head. What's that? I have a pointy head? I never thought of myself as a pointy-headed person now, but my ego is really suffering at this point. Yeah, thanks, guys. You have the gift of bequeathing humility to the pastor. Thank you very much. Humility is slippery because not this particular monk, because that's just an illustration. He doesn't actually exist, but a monk could cut his hair like that out of a sincere piety, like this idea that I'm going to make myself almost humiliated. I'm going to make myself ugly so as to not draw attention to myself and to register with humility. But isn't it also possible that it's just a big symbol of his piety? Isn't it also possible that he just wants to be seen as one who is humble? Therefore, he displays his humility for all to see. And we all do it. It's all part of the waters we swim in. And being the expert in humility that I am, I think I can fairly say that recognizing the water you're swimming in is a huge step towards humility. Just owning it, owning the fact that all of us hunger for respect, hunger for admiration, and we have, in some sense, an unhealthy desire for it, is kind of the beginning of humility. So as we talk about humility, we're not going to exactly define it, but we're going to talk about what it is and what it ain't. There's a list that I'm going to put on the screen in just a moment that when we see it, we recognize that it is not humility. And it's easy to grasp. And it's this: arrogance, not humility. Exceptionalism, not humility. Self-promotion, there's some good reasons why one might. And exceptional, if you mean unique, could be humble. Exceptional, if you mean above others, is not humble. So even this list is complicated. We look at it and say, this is a list that defies humility. Self-promotion, domination, entitlement. We see this list, and we automatically assume it's kind of the antithesis of humility. But there's some slippery stuff in there because, for example, if I want to influence someone, then self-promotion could be a thing that would be really valuable to the world. Exceptionalism, if you mean uniqueness, I have particular gifts. I'm a unique person. There's no other like me. That's fair, and it can be good. So it's complicated, but when we see this list, we automatically think pride, ego. This is not humility. But there's another list that feels a little bit like humility that is also slippery, and it's this one: self-loathing, false modesty, self-deprecation, shrinking and insecurity. This can still be the antithesis of humility. And we'll talk about, I don't want to go through all of these and talk about why, but these are kind of joined together in this big package of, it's like there's this pendulum that shifts between I'm the most awesome in the world and I am nothing. I am worthless. And neither of those fall into the category of what I would describe as biblical or Christ-centered humility. And the first list is easy for us to recognize. The second list, not so much. And so I'm going to say it's not humility to be in misalignment with reality about yourself. Self-aggrandizement, self-promotion, thinking you're king of the world and everybody should bow down to you, or like I'm just awesome and everyone should recognize it. You see why I'm conflicted here. There's some truth to the fact that you are just awesome. And there's some truth about the fact that if you own that too much, it gets ugly really fast. So I'm going to say humility is not humility is misalignment with reality about yourself, whereas humility, this is as close to a definition as I'm going to get. It's proper alignment with the reality about yourself. And many teachers would say with God as like the focal point. When you see God and you see yourself, humility follows. And so it's almost like just embracing reality. Humility is embracing reality. And you are not a worthless worm of the dust, and you are not the best in the world. The pendulum lies somewhere in the middle where humility is. Pride aggrandizes the self. False humility demeans the self. But real humility just tells it like it is. Real humility says, this is who I am. And it encourages comfort in who you are. I didn't know exactly where to say this in the sermon, and since it's just a puddle of mud rambling anyway, I'm just going to throw it on the screen and talk about it. You're not more special than anyone else, and you're God's favorite. Now, this is an illogical sentence. Doesn't make sense. But I've got kids, and my oldest son is too cool for this at this point. He just doesn't play the game. But my youngest three kids still play the game of, Dad, who is your favorite? And I don't know why they get such joy out of it, but they say, Dad, who's your favorite? So if Justin says, Dad, who's your favorite? I say, you are. And then Riggs will say, but who's your favorite? And I'll say, you are, Riggs. And then Elaine will say, who's your favorite? And I'll say, your mom is. And it gets a big laugh every time from them too. And when we define favorite, it means there's one that's preemptive. There's one that's above all the others. But you can see why it's fair for me to say, Riggs, you're my favorite. Judson, you're my favorite. Kara, you're my favorite. Elena, you're my favorite. Mary Jo, you're my favorite. Do you see why it's fair? It's logically impossible. But with a God who sees all and knows all and cares for all and is drawing close to all, I think it's a fair statement to embrace, even if it's logically inconsistent. There's passages throughout Scripture that seem, I don't have my list yet. I'll probably use it next week. But it's almost endless, the number of passages that deal with humility in the Scriptures. Humble yourself that you'll be exalted. If anyone desires to save their life, they will lose their life. It's like this letting go of self and ego in some sense. But there's some that seem to solidify this idea that you're not. What I really wanted to say here was you're not special. Like I feel that about myself sometimes when that ego rises up and I think that I'm something. Like sometimes you just need to be put in your place and just say, you're not special. But that would be wrong because I am special. I am unique. God has given me certain gifts and kept certain gifts from me to make me a unique person. God has filled me with His Spirit. That's special. But when special becomes related to others, and I see myself as higher than or better than or greater than, then it's turned really ugly. And so Romans instructs us to do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment. What's really interesting about this is that particular verse is followed by this list of gifts that people have. Generosity, mercy, compassion, things like that. And it says, find your gift and walk in that strength. And so in some sense it says, don't see yourself as special, but you're very special. It's a conundrum that I just think needs to be put out in the open when it comes to this talk about humility. But then it says, don't think too highly of yourself. You're not special. You're not more special than anyone else. But then the prophet Zephaniah says, the Lord your God is with you. He will take great delight in you. In his love, he will rejoice over you with singing. That to me sounds like I'm God's favorite, in a sense. I am precious to God. I'm special to God, and so are you. And humility is able to walk between those two things of I am exceptional in the sense of I'm better than others. It squashes comparative thinking, but it also says I was created for a purpose. I'm a masterpiece. I'm a work of art. I am special. And humility somehow walks that tightrope. I can't always explain it, but I think being aware of the tightrope is important. Humility is ultimately intelligent. When we think about God, even saying those words, think about God, fails to encapsulate the impossibility of such. Like whatever our faculties are that allow us to think about God, we're missing the big picture entirely. We cannot comprehend God. We can barely touch the surface on God is love and what that means. We can barely touch the surface on this God that created the universe with snaps of his finger and words out of his mouth. It's just unfathomable. And so I've been thinking about this passage out of 1 Corinthians where the author addresses the church and says, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are mere infants in Christ. I gave you milk, not solid food, for you were not ready for it, not yet ready for it. Indeed, you are still not ready. And the more I've thought about it, I thought it's all milk. Our understanding of God is infantile at best. It's just beyond us. And even saying beyond us, it's beyond that. We can't talk intelligently about God. And that has to humble us. It has to help us exist in that alignment with reality about ourselves, that we're just tiny compared to God. And that all this talk about God and all the possibilities that we seek out in searching for and acknowledging God. You can see I'm stumbling over my words. It's just, there are no words. And so humility is smart because we are small and we don't understand. Romans says, oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. In Isaiah it says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. God is beyond us. It's like standing next to the sun and trying to understand it. And God is a billion suns. God is so much bigger than we can even articulate how much bigger he is. It's an impossibility. And that impossibility, if you embrace it intelligently, destroys the possibility of pride. It destroys ego, and it humbles us. And then I've been thinking about like quantum physics and dark matter and bioethics and AI, and how much, even outside of God, just the amount of knowledge that's available is unfathomable. I think at some point human capacity will reach its limit. So somebody understands somewhat about quantum physics, and they're going to pass that knowledge on to somebody else, and they're going to pass that knowledge on to somebody else. But at some point, the knowledge will reach its peak, and there will be no more capability to learn. I know this is getting pretty wackadoo, but there's things we just don't understand. Like, for example, why your spouse says, I'm not hungry, and then eats your fries. There's a movie quote that says, there's a few things sacred in this world. One of those happens to be another man's fries. But I say that jokingly, obviously, but even understanding another person is so beyond our capabilities. To understand the neurology of their brain and their upbringing, why they make the choices they make, who they really are. We can't even do it for ourselves. How much less for somebody else? And the universe breeds humility, if you pay attention. Humility is the natural result of being intelligent and seeking understanding. There's a scientific effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which many of you will be familiar with at this point. But it's studies that show the less a person knows, the more confident they are that they know. And people who know how much they don't know. And so we exist in a world, we're swimming in the waters where everybody has an opinion. If you've been on social media recently, you've met 100 people that are experts in foreign policy, on nutrition, on sexuality, on race, on some of the deepest, most difficult topics of our time. Everybody's an expert. Everybody knows who the starting wide receivers should be for the New York Jets. Armchair quarterbacks. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's this idea. So when you arrive at the point that you feel like you know something, it's humble to admit that you don't know everything that you know. And it's, for kicks, join the Facebook group, People Incorrectly Correcting Other People. This is an example. Somebody posted, a light year isn't a measure of time. Somebody responded, actually, look at that word, actually. Be very careful about the word actually. Actually, it's distance, time, and speed, just saying. A light year is the time in which light can travel at a given speed over time to a specific distance. The distance comes from the time and speed and calculations. Know before you post, it's literally all three, except that it is literally not. A light year is a measurement of distance, period, full stop. And this person, Dunning-Kruger, in full-blown illustration here, says, I know something you don't know, and they start with, well, actually. Humble people guard against the word actually. They keep it in a vault, only brought out on rare occasion. And humble people, odds are if they're humble, they probably do know a lot. But in knowing that they know a lot, they recognize there's so much more that they don't know. Intelligence demands humility. And then we live in this world with propaganda and fake news and AI, and it's hard to tell when you see a picture of the president doing whatever, X, Y, and Z, is it really a picture of the president or is this something AI has put out? When we hear about Iran and the war going on over there, everybody has an opinion, but very few ground their opinion in the reality that propaganda is a real thing in this world, that fake news is a real thing in this world, that it's hard to sort out what is real and what isn't, and it's easy to be disoriented. But humility says, yep, I'm disoriented. Not, I got it, man. I understand completely. And so it's intelligent, and then we recognize that it's important that we're honest about it. Once again, as a certified expert in humility, I'm going to say one of the keys to humility is the admission of what you don't know. It's recognition. It's not just recognition, that's the intelligent part. Recognition is that I'm frail, I'm weak. Propaganda is a real thing. AI is real. Fake news is real. I don't know as much as I think I know. I'm not more special than you are. But it's allowing that intellect to turn into thought, word, and deed. It's honest about what you know. And then when you're honest about what you know, humility is kind of this realm where certainty becomes curiosity. And curiosity breeds study or teachableness. And teachableness breeds education. So even the process of learning is a process of humility. Man, I've been thinking about this passage in 1 Corinthians a lot lately. It says, what do you have that you did not receive? Man, what a great question. Whether it's the comfort of your air conditioning at home, a partner that you love dearly, an education, a car that you drive, your ability to breathe and think and touch and smell, all gifts given. None of it is of you. Actually, that's not fair to say. And this is another place where the pendulum gets a little complicated, is you are a participant in life. And you're able to use your gifts in certain ways that does make you unique and extraordinary and important. But your very being was given to you. The brain that allows you to do such, the emotions that you're able to feel, all of it gifts. And so once again, we go back to, you're not more special than anybody else, but you are God's favorite. You're not gifted beyond others, but you're gifted like others who God created in his image. In this sweet spot where we're intelligent and honest about we're in alignment with our lives, there is security. There's no more striving for validation. You are pre-validated. The breath in your lungs pre-validates you. The compassion that you feel for others pre-validates you. You are beloved now with nothing else needed in your part. And it breeds security. I had the privilege of opening a meeting that the mayor of Louisville attended a while back, a few years ago, and I was invited to open the meeting in prayer. And those of you that know me or have heard me pray, it was really simple. God, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for this organization. Please bless them. Help us to walk with you. Amen. Real simple. I don't remember exactly what I prayed, but it was something quick. And I was wearing khaki pants and a button-up. The next guy that got up was supposed to speak the benediction, and it was a black gospel preacher in robes. And man, he channeled the spirit of MLK. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr., this guy had the deep, growly voice. And he said, bow your heads with me. His booming voice filled the hall, and he said something along the lines of, most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we are deeply thankful for your presence here in this place. And we see together, ask that you would turn our hearts and ears towards what your Spirit would say in this moment. And he went on. It was like this dude was a professional, like he was good. And it made me feel like my prayer was crap. It made me, I was like, man, this guy's got it, and I don't. I even had ugly thoughts like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And do you see that was ego-driven? My response to that was ego-driven. It didn't reflect alignment with the reality about myself, that there's a time and place for a guy like me to pray a simple prayer, and there's a time and place for a guy like him to pray this eloquent, verbose, and stunningly beautiful prayer. And so even in that moment, because of my ego, I couldn't align with reality. I couldn't enjoy his prayer for what it was or embrace his prayer. And then it certainly begs the question of, what was I praying for to begin with? Like, was my prayer sincere at all when I'm viewing it as crap because somebody prayed better than me? And comparison will ruin you. But humility creates security. Imagine had I been humble in that moment, I would have just been able to appreciate his prayer. I would have been comfortable and confident in who God created me to be. But instead, I was in discord. I was insecure because I lacked humility in that moment. And then intelligent, honest, and secure humility is liberating. How much that image of myself while that man prayed, the insecurity there was binding. It had me in chains. How much more could I be liberated had I just been humble in the moment and appreciated it for what it was? Humility is quite liberating. It's a letting go of yourself. It's a letting go of desire. It's a letting go of hunger for appreciation, to be noticed by others. There's something very freeing about it. Many of you watched the Super Bowl this year. This is Drake May, the quarterback for the Patriots. and I don't expect any cheering right now, but I would be with you if you did. They lost the Super Bowl to the Seattle Seahawks. And I think I've used this illustration before because it's important to me. But imagine them interviewing Drake May afterwards and him saying, man, those Seahawks are good. I mean, they played a heck of a game out there. We prepared all season long for this moment, and they got the better of us. They are really good. And I'm so thankful that I got to play in the Super Bowl at all. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that I get paid to play a game that I love. And they got the best of us today, but we're going to be back next year, man. A guy like that cannot lose. When your perspective on life is humble, when you realize how small you are and how gifted you are at the same time, it's very freeing and liberating. You can't lose. And finally, humility is loving. We've talked about loving prayer, loving Lent, loving fasting, loving intentional discomfort, and so forth. It wouldn't be right to not put loving humility on the screen. Loving the verb, loving the adjective, humility. Humility is grounded in love, and I'm not sure how to put it. It comes alongside us as we seek to be loving. It fills us with something beautiful that we can share with the world. It allows us to see God in ways that pride never will. So that you've seen this slide many times about the height and width and depth and length of the love of God and how it's horizontal and vertical and has depth. And we've compared the horizontal axis to love for God. The three loves: love for God, love for self, love for others. And we've given each of them an axis. I think to properly love God is to put yourself in alignment with the correct perspective of who you are before God. It's much easier. I'm struggling with how to say this. I heard it recently that nobody ever comes to God and says, "Congratulations, I'm here." That is the wrong perspective to take with God. Instead, it's, "Whoa, you are there." And somehow humility ties into this ability to love God the way you were designed to love God and to be loved by God the way you were designed to be loved by God. When it comes to others, pride just gets in the way. Comparison ruins relationships. Ego is not the key to successful marriage. Ego is not the key to successful parenting, successful friendships, successful relation. Man, successful is hard to say 18 times in a row. Successful relationships with your coworkers. Ego is the enemy of all that. Knowing that you're not more special than anyone else and you're God's favorite really frees you and liberates you to have successful relationships, to love others well. And obviously, loving self is almost self-explanatory. To love yourself is to acknowledge, to see yourself in reality. To see ego eats away at your life. It leaves you wanting. Humility breeds great satisfaction. It allows you to love yourself.